Awesome. Okay, cool. How's everyone doing? How's San Diego? It's pretty nice. It's kind of a nice weather, I guess. My name is Keiran Flanigan. I'm going to be talking mostly about building apps for yourself, / maybe others. Aliox is my name across the internet. Feel free to follow or stalk or whatever you want to do. The question I always get asked is, how do you pronounce that? To which I usually reply, I'm not sure. I don't really say it out loud ever. But anyway, thank you very much to Drew. It's a big honor to be speaking with everybody who's speaking today, and just all you being here. It's a huge honor to follow Jeff. That was a great talk. Hopefully I can at least give you a small piece of the same knowledge. I didn't know, so when I was asked to speak, I was asked to talk about kind of something that I've made and at least give a little peek behind the scenes as to what it was like to build it. And so I didn't know exactly if I should make it just a straight off, one-off case study, or if I should try to get a little preachy and extrapolate it into like big life advice. The problem with being preachy is you kind of have to know the person, or at least trust the person doing the preaching, and who the hell am I? So we'll start there. I am an iOS dev primarily. I also do design. I kind of do all those fancy layers right there. Currently, I am everything product is literally my title at an app and a company called Reissued. We just launched a couple weeks ago. I wish I had more time to talk about this because it's actually pretty cool. I'll talk about it anyway. There's a couple pretty cool screens that I at least just want to highlight. And maybe it's just a shameless plug, but it's a really cool app. It's like it's a high-end flea market in your phone is what people have called it. It's the ability to sell vintage goods to anybody, anywhere. And we definitely took this very strong, very aggressive content first, Chrome later / never approach, which was very challenging but very fun to design and then actually get to implement. So as you can see, there's a profile there, and there's a full screen edge-to-edge item detail where you can actually buy something, and then the sell form on the far right, which is super minimal, super easy to use, and that was our intent. We wanted people to be able to sell things as quickly as you can post something on Instagram, and not on eBay or on Craigslist. So that was the idea there. The real cool thing is this guy, which is the feed. And this crappy GIF frame rate belies how buttery smooth this is. But anybody who's dealt with trying to get rid of implement a transparent navbar in iOS 7 knows like what the hell do you do with things as it scrolls up? What happens with your content? What happens with the controls? So we're doing a pretty sweet little masking thing where the background stays, but the content actually gets masked as it gets back there. Pretty clever. And there's a little bit of a parallax going on in the feed. You can't really tell in the GIF, but anyway, enough of that. Shameless plug is over, but do check it out. It's free. It's pretty sweet. Back to me. I am originally from Colorado. Went to school in Boulder. That's actually, that picture was taken this morning, I think. Not really, but snow in June is not out of the question by any means. I originally wanted to make movies. I kind of still do, actually. And then at some point during college, I got remember that guy? A really crappy bootleg copy of a very old Photoshop, and just started to just wanted to figure it out. I thought, cool, I'll figure this out. It seems like it'd be a good thing to know. Shortly thereafter, while as a graphic designer, I took a stab at front-end web dev because I thought, I'll figure it out. It seems like it'd be good to know. Then while hired as a web developer, I took a stab at back-end web development because I thought, all right, I'll figure it out. It would be good to know, I think. And then our friend in 2008, the iPhone OS SDK 2.0 came out. And I was like, okay, I'll figure this out. And then fast forward 6 years, I'm still doing this. And I've made some really cool apps for some really cool clients along the way. So that's the quick and dirty version of who I am. You still don't have to take my advice, but that's who I am. What I want to talk about, though, in particular, is an app that I built for the coolest client of all, and also the biggest pain in the ass client, yourself. So this was an app I made called Heed. Just earlier this year, actually, I finally got it out. I wrote a Medium post about it. I don't know if some of you have read it. If you have, thank you. But this is kind of a similar a similar track to what the post was about. I think I'm probably similar to a lot of you in that I'm constantly juggling side projects, like all the time. I think majority of the time they're side projects as ventures. They're like, I have a sweet idea for a game, or I have a sweet idea for a utility. I'm going to build it, throw it on the App Store. Maybe I'll make $1 million, or maybe I'll at least make $1 million worth of recognition. For me, the majority of my side projects have always been side projects as learning exercises, as explorations, as maybe it's just due to the nature of being entirely self-taught, but I've always said, I'm going to go learn that thing by making a project for it. There's this thing called core data that I feel like I should probably get to know. I'm going to go build a note-taking app just so I can figure it out and I have a chance to learn it, because chances are I'm going to use it later. Heed was a little bit different. This one actually spawned kind of as both, but more of this third one. Heed was definitely a personal solution, something that I wanted to build because I had a problem that I felt like I could fix myself. So my problem is that I'm really bad at email. And I feel like a lot of us are, but like I'm really bad, to the point that I actually took note of being so bad and decided to make something about it. I would venture to guess that everyone's got some sort of issue with email. I think it's kind of it's outdated in a lot of ways. And as evident, if nothing else, by the number of solutions that are now available, new clients trying to improve your experience. It's just for me, it's always very noisy, and I feel like most people address that just by super aggressive organization. I take the opposite approach. I just neglect. And then not helping that is the fact that I get super OCD about the red badge. Like I need that to be gone. So I quickly jump in an email app, mark everything as red, and then close it. So if you've emailed me in the past like 6 years, I apologize. That's what you got. So my needs for a solution, when I sat down to think about it, I wanted to add the concept of priority to messages, super easily be able to like triage things that came in. And along with that, I wanted to decouple the concepts of important and unread. I didn't want if something was important, I didn't want to have to unread it just so I would see it later. To me, those were very separate things, and I wanted to decouple them. I wanted to remove any unnecessary email constructs, stuff that just didn't apply to me, because this was my solution. So I didn't need folders. I didn't need labels. I didn't need this organizational overhead. It wasn't important to me. I had never worked with email. I'd never worked with IMAP servers, and so I thought, well, I'll figure it out. It'd be good to know, I think. And so I made Turbine. I took a couple months of time that I didn't really have to actually make something. And this thing was completely functioning. From the ground up, I wanted to make it as clean as possible, as colorful as possible. This red and the various shades of red are there to denote different priority levels, so I could very quickly check and see, all right, which ones have I marked as needing my attention. And it's not bad. It's a little clunky, and there's the compose screen is this kind of clunky modal that pops up. Same modal that I use for opening email attachments for in-app email links. It's not too bad. It hit my feature goals in the obligatory splash page. It hit the majority of my feature goals. It worked okay. It wasn't bad. It was functioning. So I submitted it to Apple and it got approved. I was going to charge a couple bucks for it, but I never posted it. I never listed it for sale. It's probably still waiting for me to submit it in the App Store right now. But I couldn't do it. It just wasn't right. And so I decided to can it. I completely killed it. So what went wrong? For me, it wasn't a good enough solution. And I recognized that. I recognized as soon as I built it that despite the fact that it was functioning, this actually didn't solve my issues. It became something bigger than that. It became something that no longer was for me. It was for everybody else. It was for as a venture, as if it were a project that I wanted to go make money. Primarily, it was the wrong platform. In my head, I saw an email client. I saw it on the desktop. I saw it as a Mac app. I decided that I'm a little quicker with iOS. I should just make it iOS first. The iPad is a little bit closer of a form factor to an app that you'd run on the desktop, so I'll just make it iPad, because that way I can at least design it the way I'm envisioning it. And talk about form driving function on that one. Like, that was my logic. And I actually ended up introducing unnecessary overhead. I brought in this whole kind of this secondary feed of the things that you've prioritized. That was just completely killing the initial purpose, and it just made me sad. So I completely killed it. It was a hard decision in that I sunk a lot of time and a lot of effort and energy into it to just say, actually, this isn't going to happen. But in a really weird way, I was also kind of proud to be able to like deem it unsatisfactory. Like I was able to look at it and say, this isn't good enough. I was able to put on the client hat for myself and say, no, this isn't right. And so here's your optional takeaway number one if you feel like taking it away. Pride should be stronger than the excitement of an idea or the fear of its failure, which is very much true in this situation. So I literally shelved the project for an entire year. My daughter and I are watching a lot of SpongeBob recently, so that's where that came from. I barely even thought about the app over the course of the year. I still have my problem though, obviously. So I started to get the itch to actually do it again. But this time I took what I learned. I used the previous experience. I now have this knowledge that of working with IMAP, of working with email in general. And I saw everything that I did wrong before, completely started over, redesigned, built from scratch. And I built Heed, which has also crappy little frame rate animated GIF in there. It took me about 3 weeks from initial designs to having it available in the App Store, which isn't too bad. So to show a little bit off of Heed, I switched to a more appropriate form factor. I still didn't want to go Mac yet, but instead I actually went to the device that's in your pocket, the device that would actually benefit me from having these tools available. I kept it super clean, very white space, very typo-driven. So here's a peek at like what the input forms actually look like. Super minimal. Like that's how you add a new email account. Like that's all I need. The rest of it will just be assumed if it can be. And that's the super dynamic markdown supported composition form. And then actually highlighting the bread and butter is this unified feed now, where my unread messages would get denoted by the blue circle, and they would hang out always on top, and then followed by messages that I would mark a certain priority between medium, low, or high, medium, and low. And there's some guy asking me to speak at a conference. He's low priority. And you do so by swiping on the row. The further you swipe, the higher priority. So how does this match up with the solutions that I need? Super easy to swipe to triage messages. That's my sense of priority that I needed in the first place. I can double tap any message to mark it as read, which gets rid of the damn icon badge that much quicker. It simplifies that feed, so there's one thing. There's no organizational overhead, nothing that I don't use. And then most telling of all, I've been using it since it was a barely functioning MVP, and I still do. It's still my go-to email client, which is a pretty good point, I think. So it's available now. It's free. It's not perfect. I think I would love to have some time to get back in there and clean up some things, but I think that's something we always face with everything we do. It might not be the perfect solution for you. It might help, but that's really not why I built it in the end. All right, so what are the takeaways from this very brief case study? Fail fast, learn fast is your optional takeaway number 2. Learn fast is the part that is never actually written, but it's probably the important part when someone says fail fast, because failing is all fine and good, but recognizing not only why and how you failed, but that you failed is pretty key. And then obviously being able to learn from that and rebound better for it. And then know your standards and hold yourself to them, because if you don't, who's going to? And I think that in this case, it's being your own client. It's both the good parts of being your own client and the tough parts of being your own client. But what you build will be better for it. And so then the required takeaway, that now that we're friends, now that you know who I am, this is the required takeaway, is that regardless of what project you're working on, if it's for something, if it's an idea you have, it's for a buddy's idea, if it's for client work that you're doing, take care in what you do, because it might not improve the product, but it will improve you, regardless. And that's really what I mean by building an app for yourself. It will better you. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Keiran. So we'll open it up for questions again if anyone has any questions.
Thank you very much. My question is, when you went back to build the app after the year delay, you chose the iPhone instead of the Mac, and I'm wondering why you made that decision, because I totally agree. I hate email. I struggle with it. I've tried every single app on the Mac for email.
Right.
Why did you choose the iPhone and not the Mac?
Yeah, I went iPhone, one, because I'm comfortable with iOS. I'm quick with iOS. I knew that I could build it faster. And being the side project that it is, I didn't have time to spend building it out. I wanted it to be on Mac. I wanted it to be on Mac and iPhone, ideally. I just never had time for it. So I went with the path of least resistance. And at least compared to what it was originally on the iPad, this actually made sense to me. It wasn't the design that I had in my mind initially, the form factor that I had in my mind. But at least this was something that it was actually in my pocket all the time. It was something that would actually benefit me. As opposed to the iPad, I never even opened the app on the iPad. So it'd still be nice to get it to Mac eventually.
I have a really simple question. I was wondering what typeface that is.
That is Brandon text.
Thanks.
Hey, great talk.
Thanks.
Question about the decision to not actually go through with putting the first version on the App Store. Drew wrote a book called Execute. We have in our company, we have this phrase, we just say ship it and get it out there, see what customers say, and then iterate on it. So like what drives the decision to say it's not perfect, I don't even want to get feedback about it. How do you make that decision not to ship it and start iterating?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I obviously was intent on shipping it. I submitted it. It got approved. I had my finger on the button. I was ready to push it. I think for me, I fundamentally knew it was wrong. It's not a matter of being perfect or not. Like I often say that I'm very meticulous in what I do, intentionally not saying perfectionist, because I never think anything I do is perfect, and it's not. But even just knowing that it's not even something that I think is worth or at a point that I should be taking in feedback. Because to me, fundamentally, and I being the person I built it for, I'm not comfortable with it. It had some, I mean, it had some kind of fundamental issues. It was some performance issues, some stability issues, but those weren't even the ones that stopped me. The one that stopped me was the fact that it just wasn't right. Like it was not the right product. So it was kind of tough. It was a tough decision not to push, to put it out there and at least see what happened. But like I said, it was kind of weirdly rewarding too, being able to like get to that point and then make a decision to say, I have a better standard than this, so I'm not going to do it. I don't know if that answers your question. I'm not sure.
What point did you decide it wasn't right? Like, is it you submitted to Apple and then you had to wait and you're just like,
yeah,
now I get to think about it. I'm not working on it anymore. And
yeah, that's probably true. I think I kind of, even just as I was building it and I'm not even using it, like I'm not even dog fooding it, it's probably a problem. So I think I knew it was going to be a potential issue, and then yeah, maybe I think it's just submitted by habit. And then when it actually went time to pull the trigger to submit the thing to people, maybe I had enough time to say like, I don't want to put this out.
The whole time you're developing it, you're kind of less like, solving this problem, and then you're like, this is the right problem.
Yeah, I don't think I actually solved my problem at all. Okay. Yeah, for sure.
I might ask this question more than once today to different presenters. When you set out to take on a product or project, whether it's a project you're doing on your own and then putting it out on the market to see what happens, or if somebody hires you to design an app, do you do any kind of market research to determine if there will be a market for it before you take it on?
Typically, yes. This one, I did not. I did not do anything for this. I literally was just trying to fix a problem of mine, which is why in that when I was talking about the different kinds of side projects that I do, or client projects for that matter, this one was kind of unique in that it was actually just addressing. It was for me. It was just addressing a shortcoming that I had. So of course I search around seeing what else is available, what could help me out, before eventually deciding like I'm just gonna build something, because why not? So whether or not it was going to resonate for other people necessarily wasn't really my focus. So it's kind of a unique thing.
Hey, so basically you're saying that this project was for you, right? But
Yeah.
what if a client came to you and said, and gave you the same specs, the same problem, the same, and you had the same solution? What
Sure.
would you do then?
The first solution,
Yeah, with the Mac, the iPad.
I would do my best to advise them against it. I would try to make my voice known, but you got to do what you got to do. I mean, and that was kind of my last point too, is if, regardless of who you're working for, as long as you take care and you put care into what you're doing, you will come out better for it, even if the product won't. So, I mean, I've been in situations like that before, we probably all have, where it's like you try to convey the best solution to a client and it just doesn't stick, it just doesn't resonate. And it's tough, because it's not your thing in the first place. But as long as, my whole philosophy, as long as I'm still putting in as much care and as much effort as I can, I still benefit regardless.
Awesome. Thanks, Keiran.
Yeah, man. Thank you.